Sal, Murr, Q, and Joe. You've seen them on the immensely popular show Impractical Jokers that has aired on True TV since December of 2011. Over the past 13 years, this group of hilarious pranksters has made me and millions of other fans laugh uncontrollably at their antics, including embarrassing challenges, awkward punishments, and everything in between. Now, we all know Q, or Brian Quinn, as a comic book fan, but did you know that the Impractical Jokers starred in their very own comic book? Alright, welcome to a special episode of Comic Drops where we take a look at the limited edition Impractical Jokers comic to discover the secret origin of this dynamic foursome. Is it worth reading, or should you just stick to watching the show? Stay tuned to find out.
Me back my hedge clippers.
Gary never gave me back my hedge clippers.
Did you fart?
Excuse me?
Did you fart?
That fart? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Be honest, can you smell the donuts from there?
Oh, what's that, a glazed? That's a glazed.
Okay, let's start with some background information about this special edition Impractical Jokers comic book. So the origins of this comic book actually date back to July 20th, 2013, just a couple of years after the show debuted on True TV. At the Broken Yoke Cafe in San Diego, California, the Jokers held a meet and greet event to interact with fans and further promote this new show. As a part of the event, fans were given a comic book as a thank you for attending. The comic was actually published by Warner Brothers Books, which, of course, owns DC Comics. So technically this comic was published by DC. Also, it's noteworthy that Brian Quinn served as the creative consultant on this comic book. There was also a special edition handed out at the San Diego Comic-Con in 2015. Of course, this led fans scrambling to find a copy of this comic in the secondhand market, and it has even become a collector's item since the popularity of the show has skyrocketed in recent years. An unsigned copy can range from $20 to $40, but if you want an autographed copy from the event, you would have to shell out upwards of $700 to add that to your comic collection. Alright, so now that you know the background of the comic, what's it about? Well, let's take a look at the story. As I mentioned before, this comic is supposed to show fans the secret origin of the Impractical Jokers. Doug Wagner is on writing duties for the comic, whose other writing credits include some prominent comics, like Batman Arkham Origins, Plastic, Plush, and Click Click Boom. In my opinion, I commend Q for working to secure a proven talent in the comic industry to write this comic. Contrary to what I thought this comic would be, this shows that the Jokers wanted this comic to be something special, not just some one-off promotional item that fans would just throw away. The comic opens with the Dean of Discipline from the high school where each of the Jokers attended, and his current talking points sound like a promotion for the show. He says he chased these guys through the school for 4 years and they annoyed him to no end. He even reaches into his desk and pulls out a file on them after all of these years. In the file, for some reason, they have pictures of each of the Jokers as they look now, and it's kind of weird, but then he proceeds to give a bit of backstory on each of them. Murr doesn't know the meaning of morality, Sal is scared to use public bathrooms, Q is crafty, sneaky, and daring, and Joe is loud and in your face. After a bit of reflection on the part of the Dean of Discipline, he states he despises these clowns. And then we flash back to 1990 at Monsignor Farrell High School on Staten Island, where the Jokers are up to no good. The dare is to grab the Dean's hat and wear it during the school day. And even Joe is looking for Larry back in 1990 in this scene. And we also cut to a few other pranks as well. Joe has to put his nose on the back of his physics teacher while she's teaching. Sal has to strike a kung fu pose and stop Irene from stealing his lunch money, and he gets beat up in the process. And Murr has to botch a presentation on Don Quixote by using details fed to him by the other Jokers. Apparently Don Quixote's sidekick was Han Solo, and he had to fight the terrible Darth La Mancha. So the entire premise of the show can be traced back to a few friends daring one another to do stupid things in 1990. Then we jump to 1992 when all 4 of the Jokers decided to try out for the football team. Of course, the dares continued on the football field also, and Q is asked not to wear a football helmet, but instead wear the mascot's head onto the football field. Apparently, the coaches and the other players were not a fan of this, and none of them made the team that year. And this was a turning point in their high school comedy careers. According to the comic, their failures only encouraged them to try harder to make people laugh. And making people laugh was their main focus. Then we get a few more glimpses of other pranks they pulled, including locking Sal in the janitor's closet with a cat. I just don't get his fear of cats, but anyways. Q telling a teacher, "I am your father," and Joe tripping during lunch only to throw his entire food tray all over himself. Overall, this comic exists to give us more insight into the young Impractical Jokers and their lives in high school. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to high school with these guys? It would have been awesome. Now we jump back into the present day to what the comic calls the Impractical Epiphany. Joe is still trying to find Larry, apparently, and the guys formulate the idea for their show Impractical Jokers. And the book concludes with a couple of final scenes, one with them shooting an episode where Joe has to intimidate a person at the gym by asking him, "How do you work out that ponytail, Cupcake?" And then we cut back to the Dean of Discipline and our narrator, just as Q bursts into his office and calls him Mustache, which I'm sure all of you Impractical Jokers fans will instantly recognize from the show. Overall, this was an enjoyable read, and it's an excellent idea for a promotional item for this type of show. It gave a bit of backstory, it had some humor, and was a nice token of appreciation to the fans who received one. I think it certainly could have been a lot worse considering how other promotional comics have ended up in the past. Essentially, toilet paper is more valuable than they are. Fortunately, that isn't the case with this one. Next, let's take a look at the artwork within the special edition Impractical Jokers comic. On pencils for this issue is Adam Archer, whose credits include a lot of promotional comics. He's worked on everything from Ratchet and Clank to Friday the 13th to Scribblenauts. So while he's worked on quite a few titles, I will have to say that the art in this issue is, well, impractical. In several of the panels, if a Joker's name wasn't used, I would not have known who they were. In fact, Joe in the flashback sequences is completely unrecognizable. It's that bad. Now, when the storyline moves back into modern times, you can certainly tell the Jokers apart. It's almost like this artist struggles with drawing teenagers, I guess. There are only a few comic books that come to mind with art that's this bad, and I really don't want to mention them here. If you know, you know. However, the art is at least serviceable and is cohesive enough to move the story along without too much confusion. On colors is Wes Hartman, who again does his job in an adequate manner, but it's nothing really to write home about. Now, Hartman is a pretty prominent colorist, so I'm somewhat confused by the fact that this seems like a rush job for him. But in the end, this isn't a high-end superhero comic, it's a promotional comic for the Impractical Jokers. So I'll give him a pass in this case. Overall, the art ranges from okay to bad in this issue, but it's consistent enough to keep fans engaged. Alright, let's sum up my thoughts on the Impractical Jokers limited edition Origin comic. The pros of this comic are it stars the Impractical Jokers, it was given out for free, and it gives fans some background information on how the show was created. The cons of this issue are the story is all over the place, the art is mostly bad, and it was only given out at special events, so distribution was limited. Overall, if you're an Impractical Jokers fan, this is certainly something you'll want to pick up and add to your collection. If not, then this really isn't worth your time. Okay guys, that wraps up my review of the Impractical Jokers limited edition Secret Origin comic. Now you might think this is the only comic featuring the Impractical Jokers, but there is another comic on its way to me right now that I think you guys will be interested in checking out. So check back soon for that video. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think of the Impractical Jokers' first comic outing. Alright, check your pull lists and hopefully we can find Larry somewhere. See you guys soon.